I do need to share that when I was 21, I did have, I hate to call it traumatic, even though it was a major life event. But my parents did divorce after 27 years of marriage. And I think at that point, I was basically like, what is life all about? Because everything I knew to be true, I was in an abusive marriage. Life was a lot harder than what I ever thought it was going to be. And then my parents, who I never dreamed would not be together, weren't together. And it was like what I saw as our, I hate to use the word perfect, but that's kind of how I thought, was shattered. And then I had to learn that it was okay to not be perfect. It was okay to have life. It was okay to have things go on and still love each other. And one thing that my parents did such a wonderful job through the transformation of what our extended family looks like now is my mom and dad stayed best friends. And they remained close and good friends. They didn't fuss and fight. They didn't have some big court battle. And again, that showed me what unconditional love looked like. That showed me what even splitting up in a healthy way looked like. And even though I didn't like it, even though I didn't want it, my parents did divorce well. They really did. And to this day they do. My mom and dad are very close. And nothing is awkward or weird with our families. We vacation together. And my mom actually remarried, and her husband, her late husband, was good friends with my dad. I mean, they always put everyone else's needs and feelings ahead of what fighting, or we just never had that division. And that is the picture of true love, in my opinion. And I hate that they weren't able to work it out, and that was hard, but they still showed us that we could all still be a family and we could all love each other, but it just looked different. So that was another piece that became change in my life in my early 20s, and I had to learn what that new normal looked like as well. So that's just another piece of the puzzle. And you know, so when I met Shay and we shared that story, I mean, I was just a broken woman. And it really, I went out. I wasn't a going out kind of person. Not that I never went out. There were lots of periods in my life where I went to karaoke way too much or went and danced way too much. But at that period of my life, I wasn't a going out person at all. I was just focused on work and my kids. And that friend of mine, let me back up, that I didn't know at all. And then she got paired with me, and we had to practice cheerleading together. And then she also was one of the top 6 that made cheerleader in 7th grade. And she became a friend of mine for years and years. She practically lived at my house growing up, and we did a lot of life together. We fought and made up, and we had a lot of ups and downs through the years. But back then, she was always there for me, and she was like a sister to me. And she's a hard person to talk about, but she is who wanted me to go out and wanted me to get out of the house. So she said, I want to take you out. Let's go out to dinner. And then she talked me into going dancing, and she could always talk me into things, always. And not always good things, sometimes good things. But she could talk me in, and she liked to have fun. I liked to have fun. And the night, actually, that we met Shay, I had said to her, we had gone to eat, we had gone to this dance club. I was like, oh, I cannot do this. I just want to go home. Well, she wanted me to meet somebody so bad. She was so afraid if anything could happen that I would go back. And everybody in my life was afraid. Everybody was like, please help her meet somebody. Help her. She's got to get away. She's got to stay away. And so we had left, actually, the place we were at, and she took me to some other place she knew. She always knew all these places. And I was like, can we just go back to the hotel? Let's get a movie, room service. That's kind of my vibe. And she's like, no, we're going back. We're going back. I'm like, okay. So we go back to this place called Carson's, and we're out there dancing. And I had told her, I said, one more song, one more song. And then I saw Shay across the room. And I was like, oh, he's cute. And because of my roots and having a daddy that wore Tony Lama boots and a cowboy hat and growing up like I did in the cattle industry and on and off on a ranch, I was attracted to him. Yes, he was gorgeous. Yes, he has $1 million smile, but I was also attracted to him because of that. Oh, he didn't have a hat on that night because of his boots. But I think that's what drew me in. And then after I met him, and we did have this firework connection, like we talked about. We really did. And I'd never in my life experienced something like what I experienced when I met him. And, you know, I know they say that you have soulmates. And I think we use that term loosely. I always did. But something drew me to Shay. And so when he walked over and said, can we buy you ladies a shot? And I can't drink shots. They make me throw up. I said, yes. So the next thing you know, I drank a shot. We couldn't keep our hands off of each other. And we had this connection. Then my brakes kind of went on. Because he looked so young. And I started having that fear set in. What if he's not what he said? What if he's a kid? I mean, he looked like a kid. So I literally asked to see his driver's license because I had that fear of, what if this is another man lying to me? And then with our relationship, what was so great is the way that we built, because we lived so far from each other, on the phone. And we talked, and we talked, and we talked, and we talked, and we talked. And that was the foundation. And so then when we would get together, and this physical connection was, I mean, off the charts, like nothing I'd ever known in my life. And what has been pretty amazing and awesome is we still have that. You know, I know they say you lose that, what is that that's released in your body? Shay will know. He can tell you. He's not in here right now. But they say that after the endorphins that you feel when you first meet someone, you don't keep feeling, and so you don't keep having that. So that's one reason it's so important to make sure that you're getting with the right person with the right values and you can live together. But Shay and I have both. We've got the physical connection still to this day, but we just mesh with our values and where we come from and what we believe. And I mean, it all lined up. But in the beginning, I mean, and he can tell you this, I was leery. I was leery of him. I was leery of if he was lying to me. I would ask him all the time, are you lying to me? And I was bringing a lot of bunk from my past life into my new life because I just didn't trust. Shay, if his nose would run, I would get scared. Is he on drugs? And after you've been around someone that cheats, that lies, that steals, that will do anything to get their drug, you're scared. I mean, you just don't know what to think. And that's kind of where I was. So I was such a broken individual in the beginning. But the difference for me is I had the Lord. And every time I would start to question Shay, and he would reassure me, and he was very loving with it because he knew what I had gone through. So he never made me feel, what do I want to say? He never made me feel like I was insignificant or wrong for distrusting him when I had no reason to distrust. He just always knew what my heart was and where I was coming from. And he really would laugh. He would be like, "You are crazy." Because I was so afraid. It was like when I was young and I just met someone and just wanted to be married. It didn't matter who the individual was. I was not seeing any signs or listening to any people. And then this time it was like my guard was so up that I wanted to trust, I wanted to believe, I wanted to think, yeah, this is it. But I would hold myself back. And we instantly knew we wanted to be together. But then I would pull myself back. And we did get engaged really, really quick. Now, that wasn't without any strife or any problems. We weren't sitting around fussing and fighting. But we did have things because I was going through so much as a person. But I think the way Shay handled that is what showed me he was somebody that I would want to be married to, because he really accepted me. I told him the good, the bad. I told him every single thing about me. And I wanted him to love me for me. And if he didn't, I was going to be okay with that. And so I really did reveal to him all of it. And for me, that worked. And that's what I needed to do, because I couldn't go into a relationship with anything. I did not want anything keeping us from being in the intimate relationship that I wanted with a man and that I wanted to have. And I just wanted it to be built totally on honesty and trust. And so we did, as we were dating, we took a trip to Vegas at one point and went with some of Shay's friends, and that was a really great time. And one of the nights while we were in Vegas, Shay said, "Let's get married." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." And then we're in a cab, and he's like, "What are we doing? Our parents are going to kill us. We can't do this." And so Shay was always good to, because whatever he wanted to do, I was, let's do it. And then he was good to have common sense to say, let's do it right, and not that it's wrong if you eloped, but you've got kids, we want to involve them, we want to join our lives, our families, let's go home and do it right. And even at that, we didn't get engaged. That was in December. And then we went through the holidays, and that was my first holiday not around my family. And first time in my life, my entire life, and I was 30 years old, that I did not spend a holiday with my family. So that Christmas, Shay's family had a lot of traditions, and at that point, his dad had Alzheimer's and was progressively getting bad, and Shay ran the ranch, and that was his family's ranch, and his grandmother always had Christmas at her house, and he's got aunts and his sister, and they've all got kids. So we went to his granny's house, and Walker Waverly and me went with Shay. And that was my first experience with seeing somebody else's Christmas and what that looks like. And although it was great, and his mother did treat us amazing, and she did for me, she did for the kids, it was hard. It was really hard. And it was hard having my babies not around their grandparents and what they were used to. And that was, I wanted to be with Shay, and they loved Shay, but that was the first time I felt like, okay, my life is going to be really different. And as I told you before, I really struggled with change. And it was hard for him too. I'm going to be totally honest, because they had their traditions, and we were doing some of his traditions, some of our traditions. So Christmas Eve, we were with his family. Normally, he would go to his aunt's house, who helped raise him and do Santa and all that and wake up Christmas morning. And so instead, I wanted my kids at their house on Christmas morning. And that was a big deal to me. I said, I'll do all this other, but what I want to do is go to our house. You can go to your aunt's, but we're going to go back to our home. And he said, no, I want to be with you. And there were some tears, as there were tears from the kids on Christmas. I had some tears. Shay had some tears when we left. It was just like our life changed. And although we were so excited and embracing each other, it was difficult. It's hard for things to change, I think. And so we did celebrate Christmas together, and it did become very special. But that was the first of many things that we decided we wanted to look different in our life. And that first Christmas looked a lot different than any Christmas I had ever had. And it's not that I look back and thought it was bad, it was just different. And then we saw as a couple, okay, we're going to develop some new traditions and some traditions of our own. Instead of doing this tradition, that tradition, let's do us. So that was a part of what and how we meshed. And then we went on a cruise shortly after that, and that is where we got engaged. And while we were on that trip, and that was a really special trip because we were with a group of people that are like family to me. And Shay really I had had the opportunity to be in Vegas with his friends. Now he was on this cruise with my friends and the kids. Our kids were always with us, always, always, always. So Walker and Waverly were there. Our friends' kids were there. And while we were on that trip, it was like it just solidified, I think, the four of us as a family and us traveling together. You know, it can be fun and stressful traveling, but we just meshed. We just went. And it was one of my favorite trips we've ever been on. And one of the days we were with my very best friend in the whole entire world and her husband, and we just had a driver take us all over Ixtapa. And I am a person who's scared of a lot of things. Like, I'm not a daredevil. Like, I grew up, my parents never let me go to the lake. They didn't allow me to because they didn't want me to go and them not be there. The only time I could go is if they were there and they were going to be on the boat. They were so cautious. Anyone that knows my family knows how cautious of people my parents were. And so I've never ridden a motorcycle. I've never just done things. And Shay taught me into parasailing with him. So that was way out of my comfort zone, but Shay could talk me into anything, so I did. And while we were up in the air, he asked me to marry him officially. And I really did respond with, "Are you sure?" And when we came down, the kids were standing there on the beach, and he said, "I've asked your mama to marry me." And the first words out of Waverly's mouth were, "My mama told me that a long time ago." So we all started dying laughing, but Kelly and Glenn were right there, and Walker and Waverly were right there, and it was such a special, unique moment because Kelly and Glenn had gone through hell and back with me and were the most loyal, true friends I could ever ask for. So to have them sharing in that moment, and then the kids sharing in that moment, then my mom was back on the cruise ship and my sister. And so then we all celebrated together. No, we didn't have a ring. I said, I think he was scared for his life. So he's like, I better go ahead and marry this girl. But then we got the ring once we got back. And it was just a new beginning. And then we did start to encounter issues. So at first we were going to plan this great big wedding. And I really loved his mom, and I was around his mom a lot, and she was helping me with it. And we were working on it, and different things happened. And what I realize now that I didn't realize then is I just didn't know Shay like I do now. And his mom and I had a conversation that didn't go very well because Shay and I had been talking, and we had sent out the save the dates, and his family needed like 600 save the dates. My family, we were only going to invite 300 people. So it was like we were kind of freaking out. Like both of us think the same, and not that we're against weddings, but Shay was like, I don't care about the show. I just want to be with you. Why are we doing all this and having this unbelievably huge wedding where we're not even going to get to spend time with each other, because all we're going to be doing is talking to all these people that a third of them are there because they know our parents or they're extended or whatever. So I said to his mom, I didn't know. I just didn't know. I just did not. All I can say is you don't know what you don't know. And I had said to his mama that Shay and I had been talking. We didn't think we were going to go through. Not, yes, we were getting married, but we didn't want a big wedding. And she freaked out. She really did freak out. And she was very upset. She was upset with me. She was upset with Shay. And you know what? Looking back, I do get it, because she had been doing work with us. And I think, too, sometimes you react in ways that when you're approached with something from someone that you're not really close with, and sometimes you can react wrong. I've definitely done this in my own life and with my kids. But this started the ball rolling in the wrong direction, because when I was very upset, I was crying. I was crying hysterically when I called Shay, and I'm like, we just need to do the wedding. Your mom is upset. Let's just keep it on. I don't want to make her mad at me. And I'm a people pleaser in general, and Shay is not. And this is where we have had to mesh again. But he got very, very angry with his mom. And hindsight, knowing him like I know him now, I wish I would have never had the conversation I had that led to the confrontation he had with his mom. And even though I feel like it was a God thing where things led in our life, but it just started some dissension. And it caused his mom not to like me. That's the bottom line. And it's put a lot of strain in our family. And then things started to kind of spiral out of control between him and his mother. And they were in a family business together, and that just went from bad to worse. And so over the course of those 6 months that we were still planning a very small wedding, not real much to plan, but small wedding, we were redoing a house that had been left to him that was his great-grandparents. And then he was going through just some of the hardest times of his life with his mother and his dad being ill and him being in a whole new situation with this girl that he loves, but she's got 2 kids, and there's so many dynamics that go with that. And then trying to figure all this out, and I was moving to this little 600-person town with him. And it was hard. It was hard. And I think us being able to work through, him and I weren't fighting, but there was so much, I saw so many sides to him in that 6-month period. And I think we stuck it out, and I stuck it out, even though some of the worst was being displayed, probably in both of us. But through that, probably worse being displayed in him. I think I stuck it out because he had seen the worst in me and believed the best in me and never judged me, never said, oh, I'm not going to love you because you've gone through this, or you've got this past, or you've got this piece that I don't like of you. He just was always unconditionally saying, I love you. I love you. I don't care about that. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Everything I would tell him, it doesn't matter. Kimberly, you don't have to tell me. I'm like, I want to tell you. He would just always say it didn't matter. So as I walked through this Copeland saga, and it was the beginning of many more sagas that we're going to share, but I think just I chose him because he chose me. And I chose to stick it out because he stuck it out with me. And even though I saw there was a lot of baggage and stuff stuff that was going to come because of his estranged relationship with his mother and things, I was willing to fight it out because he was willing to fight it out with me, knowing that I brought a bunch of junk and a bunch of bad head stuff from being in what I was in. So that's kind of how we got to where we were. I do want to say this. One of our core values and one of just our ways of being and doing life is being generous people. And I know he came from a very, very generous family. That's one of their greatest qualities. That's one of his mom's good qualities. And I know that he had that from his extended family. And I came from a line of very generous people. Hopefully that gives you a little insight to me as a person. We've had some more traumatic events, very, very traumatic events happen throughout the years. And we're going to share a little bit about those later on. You know, we've lost friends. We've just had a lot of stuff. But that's where I come from, and I'm proud of it. And there's not one part of my life that I'm ashamed of. There's not one part of my life I really regret. Because every single piece of this puzzle led me to another piece. And even in a horrific or unbelievable storm, there was always a rainbow. I might not have seen it as I was walking through it, but there always was. And those are the pieces those dots I want to connect throughout this series and let y'all know a little bit more about us. So we hope you loved learning about me, Kimberly Copeland. Now I'm Fancy. I'm still Kimberly, but she calls me Fancy. And the babies call me Fancy, but everybody else in Kimberly. So we welcome you to our family. We want to tell you, subscribe. We're just excited to go on this journey with y'all. We're excited about sharing our life with y'all, sharing our children, our conversations. We have some crazy conversations around here, but we love y'all. Join us, and thank y'all so much for putting up with me telling you a little bit about myself tonight.